The impact of the Man Booker Prize is immeasurable, and it starts the minute you win it. It's so fast you can't believe it. You're giving, within an hour of it's being announced, you're giving press conferences to the world. I happen to like that. Some writers don't like it, but whether you like it or not, that's already different. And the following morning, you feel different about yourself. And it's now, 18 months more since I won. I have continued to feel different about myself ever since. You win and you feel at last, it is the sense that I have of myself, that I'm all right, that I'm quite good at this, is confirmed. Because no writer, you don't know. No writer knows if they're good or not. You think you're good, you hope you're good. You wouldn't continue unless you thought you were good. You wouldn't send a book out into the world unless you thought it was a great book. But there's a little voice underneath that says, what if it's not? And then you win the Man Booker Prize, and that's stilled. Not completely. That little voice will never be stilled and should never be stilled, because that's the voice with which you tussle. Therefore, improve and get better. And that's before we get on to the difference in sales, the fact that the novel earns you some money, and a writer always likes to earn a little bit of money, but readers. The Man Booker gets you out there into the world. It made my reputation in America. I had wanted a reputation in America. I didn't see why I shouldn't have one. I'd had a tiny one. Now I have a big one, and that's I could bore you all day with the difference that the Man Booker Prize has made to me. It's a massive accolade, not just for this book, but for your whole career. The minute the Finkler Question won the Man Booker Prize, the novel went to #1 in Pakistan. I don't know what kind of readers I've had in Pakistan before. It's my little theory that that's how they got Osama bin Laden. That Osama bin Laden was reading the Finkler Question and having a good laugh at the Finkler Question, and so didn't hear the American troops when the American troops dropped on top. He was too busy having, and I like to think that in those final moments of his life, he was having a good laugh at the Finkler Question. I like to think that I brought, not that he deserved it, but I like to think that I brought him some happiness at the end. There are three heroes in the Finkler Question, of which the oldest and the most sympathetic is Libor Sevcik, a Czech show business writer, who bore some resemblance to somebody that I know. I was inspired to Libor. And what I liked about the Libor story, and what challenged me in the writing of the Libor story, was it's a man who was, after 60 years of being wildly in love with his wife, she dies. And he has this, in his late 80s, early 90s, has to deal with that, with the enormity of that loss. I'm wondering whether there's any life for him after that, or whether there should be any life after him after that. So I wanted to write about an immense fidelity, a loyalty, that's an unshakable loyalty, and the price you pay for that loyalty, as well as its beauty, its pain. That's what this novel at the outset was essentially about, well, actually remains essentially about friendship between men, and about the loyalties that they feel to one another, and about loyalty altogether. That's always what I assumed was the subject I wanted to write about. And in this novel, two novels, perhaps Kaluki Nights and this one, The Finkler Question, I finally found the courage to lower myself deep down into loss and grief like that. So it's a very melancholy book, actually. I do sometimes get wet-eyed when I'm writing, and that's new. That's happened in the last 4 or 5 books. Finkler Question more than any other, it upset me. The story of, there's more loss in the Finkler Question than I've ever dared to tackle before. And although it was said that this was the first time the Man Booker went to a comic writer, and I wasn't going to argue with that. This is not the funniest book I've written. I never intended it to be. It would have been inappropriate for it to be the funniest book. The funniest book I've ever written is just about to come out. My new novel, Zoo Time. I very much wanted to do a very, very funny book after, the Man Booker was given to me and people were saying, this is a prize, first time of funny books. Well, I kind of wanted to say, yes, well, the Finkler Question is funny, but it's not primarily funny. This is funny. This is funny. I mean, the story is it's a man who falls in love with his wife's mother, being in love with your mother-in-law is not a genre as yet, but I thought that would be a funny thing to do. He's also a writer, and his writing career isn't going very well, and he partly thinks that if he actually has an affair with his mother-in-law and writes it, makes a novel out of the affair with his mother-in-law, that kind of will, kickstart his career and will shock people. His complaint is you can't shock people anymore. There was a time when people, when novels really upset the world, H. Lawrence, Henry Miller, Laura Durrell, people like that, and that's gone. But of course no one's in the slightest bit shocked that he's in love with his mother-in-law.